Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome to the Dave Palma Show. And in this episode with me today, I have a Rockstar concert pianist, activational speaker, and CEO of Jade Media Global. Jade Simmons, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Dave, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you, Jade. Pleasure to have you. And I'm just quite, amazed at the things you're doing, various different things. I have a cousin that's classically trained who plays the flute, actually. So it's nice to have someone sort of classically trained speaking, and and also I've got a politics degree, so that's why I'm interested in your political side of what you do. And I was a bit of an activist and did various things, probably similar, but in the UK rather than US. Sure. And then of course you're an entertainer. I used to be a sports person. Sports and entertainment tend to have the same kind of audience, performance, that kind of thing. Right. So excellent. So I thought it'd be great to have you. First of all, obviously being a classical pianist, which obviously I'll take it you took this profession up from a young age. Mm-hmm. That does tend to happen with music. Wow. And also mixing it with being an activist. I'm just trying to think. Activational speaker. What is an activational speaker?
Yeah, I'm a professional speaker, basically. And a lot of the words that you hear are inspirational or motivational. After a few years of doing it, the kind of through thread is we found that our audiences, the corporations that I speak to, they were all leaving saying they felt like they could do something. They were activated now to do the thing. So we kind of coined that term of it's not just inspiration, it's more than motivation. If you really want your people to do and move differently afterwards, then that's when you bring me in.
Like taking action.
That's right.
Speaking to make people take action, not just
feel
good, not a feel good. Yeah, not just a feel good. It's like we're going to do it. Yeah,
that's right.
Right, I've got you. Okay, well, we'll talk more on that later and a few other things that you do. But tell us how you got started. Obviously, your humble beginnings, and obviously you started. Well, I guess you started with music. Tell us all about that.
I did, and like you surmised, classical music especially is one of those things you start when you're earlier. In age. And I actually started at a considerably late age, or at least relatively late. So I didn't start until I was almost 8.5, 9 years old, which in classical, I always joke, that's almost over the hill,
So, all right. I didn't know that. I
got a relatively late start, but I loved it right away. I also played other instruments, the viola, the clarinet. I was in the marching band. And in America, it's typical to be one of these over-scheduled, over-involved kids, and I was definitely one of those. Played multiple sports and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, some people do mix, things like that, sports and music and singing. I know some that just carry on doing both kind of thing, and a few other things as well, arts.
Right.
So it's all relatively using this kind of same brain,
Yeah, the creativity would always would always show itself. But the piano was the instrument that I loved enough to go to school and major in it, and intended to have simply a career solely just performing classical music. And I did start out that way and attained a lot of things that we are often told in music school is not possible. So I was very blessed, but as I'm sure we'll get to, had a couple of twists and turns there that allowed me to do lots of different things.
All right. So tell us about that journey then. So starting the piano, obviously that stuck with you for the rest of your life because the passion was there. So how did it kind of branch off to other things? I mean, you're from Texas, US, that's right, isn't it?
I live in Texas now. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina. And I went there to Northwestern University, which is right outside of Chicago here in the state.
Yeah. All right.
And stumbled upon the Miss America pageant, believe it or not. And I was actually Miss Chicago. and then Miss Illinois. And I was first runner-up at Miss America. So like second place at Miss America. And when you compete, you have to have what's called a platform issue. And so my issue was mental health awareness, and suicide prevention. Because at the time that was a hot button issue, that sort of launched a bit of a default speaking career where I was suddenly speaking on these issues. So once I graduated with my music degree, I'd also come out kind of having discovered this ability to speak and to move audiences and to inform audiences, and eventually over time began to combine the two, speaking and inspiration in the midst of my musical offerings. And that really sort of set me apart with my peers right out of college, and was able to build a pretty unique career very early on. And eventually, even that the little bit of speaking that I was doing turned into its own thing. And I'm now brought in by many of our major corporations. And when I come abroad, it's usually to speak to a corporation over there. And I'm brought in.
Have you been to the UK?
With me. Yeah.
Oh, you have? You've been to London, yeah?
I haven't been to London.
Not yet. Okay.
I've been mostly to, I was in Amsterdam.
Oh, Amsterdam,
Berlin, Italy, France. Yeah. And London's still on the.
You managed to dodge us. We'll get you there.
Unfortunately, I'll get there.
You get it. Oh, excellent. Well, let's carry on more of your music career, and then we'll talk about where you branched to the others, because that obviously was your first passion. You got to a reasonably good level with it. I mean, you're playing at concerts. How did it all develop?
I consider myself really fortunate, in music school, and it's similar there. I have friends who, from all over the world who've been in music schools all over the world. And it's very rare to have teachers encourage you to pursue a performance career, because the likelihood is very small. And so I was blessed to be, one of the few who was able to come out. I've never taught piano, which most of my friends usually end up teaching and not performing. And I was able to build a career. And part of that was I had studied sort of these different companies and brands that I loved as well. Everybody from Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan to Apple.
You performed in front of them?
And Nike. No, what I'm saying is I studied how they built their brands and their businesses.
Right, I'm with you now. Yeah.
Took a lot of their kind of tactics in my own branding. And so right out of the gate, I was doing things a little bit differently. So I did reach a really great level. I was able to play some of the big halls in New York, play with orchestras around the world. And it was because I was speaking in those concerts that almost took a life on of its own. I was also starting to mix genres and bring in electronics into what I was doing. So today my experiences go from the classics, Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, Mozart, all the way to rap, believe it or not, hip hop and rap. So it's much more varied now, but I was very blessed early on to be able to play in the White House, to play at a ceremony in the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah,
so it was a really great career.
What was that like in the White House?
It was the only bad part was no president was home. I think the Obamas were in office at the time.
Oh, is that the Obama era?
Yeah, it was Obama. I was playing for a special Christmas event that they were having. And what I always say, and this may end up being a good seg for later as we dive into the world of politics, but I remember being in the White House. You get to take as one of the artists, you get to take a tour. And I was taking a tour, and I ended up in front of, I think it's the China, like the China cabinet, where you can see all the China of the former first ladies on display. And I remember thinking that when I was in the White House, I found myself having no political thoughts. Isn't that interesting? I found myself you could very tangibly feel the burden that must have been on the occupants of the house. Suddenly, that kind of instant judgment and criticism, all your political views, and why are they doing it this way, and they should have done that, that really does sort of go out of the window. And you're left with this sense of awe of the responsibility. Who would dare, carry this sort of burden and responsibility? And you leave with, for me, it was a different kind of honor and respect about the role that person would play, whether or not I agree with their politics.
Yeah. No, I can see that. Yeah. So let's switch from the music to the politics. How did that actually sort of get involved? You got involved with that side of things, and did you blend that in with the music, or?
No, I don't. I'm just thinking of it now, Dave, as we're talking, in terms of, in some ways it felt very inevitable, and in other ways it was not to be expected at all. I mean, we were having kind of a record-breaking year in 2019 in terms of the corporate speaking, really reaching new levels and breaking into major markets where that was concerned. And while I've always been politically minded, my father's a civil rights activist still to this day in Charleston, South Carolina. I've always been aware of race issues and unafraid to speak on those things. I had become more kind of keenly interested, but also annoyed and frustrated, but also like, why don't we try this? Why haven't we said this? And the way I've been raised is, if you find yourself always saying, why doesn't someone do something? It may need to be time for you to do something. And so, you use the term activist. I put that word in high esteem. I consider an activist someone who very regularly, not just on occasion, gives a lot of their time to speaking out on an issue. So I wouldn't call myself an activist, but I would say that I'm someone who believes there's a new message and a new vision of what politics can be that needs to be painted for our nation. And I am humbled to find myself stepping into that arena in that way, to simply present a different option for Americans to consider. I really feel like our two-party system has failed us pretty miserably now. People at all levels of life, and especially people in disadvantaged situations. So I found myself speaking out on those things in an unexpected way as an independent candidate for president last year in the 2020 elections.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we certainly had doing that kind of work. Obviously, maybe the piano during the past year and a half, the piano kind of stayed at home a bit, and the activism was huge for you. It must have been.
Yeah,
if that is the case.
Listen, the learning curve, right? I mean, I went from someone who had serious political thoughts and had serious aspirations for the future in terms of politics, and suddenly my timeline was pushed up overnight. And then you saw things like, of course, what happened with the pandemic hitting suddenly, and then the murder of George Floyd, which suddenly, the decision that we made as a team, which was we felt like there needed to be a voice on these issues. This was before the pandemic hit. It was before George Floyd happened. So we felt like we were sensing something that was coming. And so we're very proud of being able to offer a voice and an option for many Americans who had said they were tired of going into the voting booth and choosing the lesser of two evils. Yeah.
Did you have much association with, was you part of Black Lives Matter, or did you kind of know of them? Or because there's many different movements, isn't there? Like there's also the ASFAS or something. I can't remember that.
Sure, I know.
Yeah, ANFAS.
We one of the ways that we decided to run very intentionally, we ran as an independent because we really feel failed by both parties. We also understood, and I've been courted, Dave, by both parties before. And we also felt like for Americans to find trust again in government, we would have to present a version of government that looked like nothing they had seen before, and would have to shy away from associations. We did not want to be hijacked, usurped by anybody else's mission and movement. So while we spoke out and we had policy created specifically that would benefit Black Americans, we weren't a part of Black Lives Matter in any official capacity, but we spoke out about police brutality, the need to get rid of qualified immunity. But we also spoke in defense of good police. And what do we do to enable a better version of policing? Right. And so what we found ourselves doing was always trying to find where was the common ground between both sides that we knew existed, but that neither side would ever mention because it wasn't beneficial politically. And so that's the stance we took. So again, you wouldn't see logos and things like that on our site because we were determined to truly be independent and speak in a way that would represent as many people possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly. Tell us a little bit about what was going on for you during the lockdown. I mean, what happened straight away? Because obviously you had to cancel maybe live speaking and live performance.
Man, I'll tell you what, like I said, we had a record-breaking year in 2019, and we expected to almost triple that in 2020. So most people, we just had all these plans and hopes pinned on 2020. We were mid-travel when suddenly the events on my calendar just disappeared. And so as a team, we had to turn around, go back to home base. Yeah. One really great silver lining, and I teach people how to reframe all of these situations as they're happening, was that we had been saying, we really need to find our virtual component to our live experience. We had been saying that and hadn't really activated because the demand wasn't there. Suddenly now the demand was there. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to convert some of our live appearances to virtual. And now I'm very proud to have won a ranking of one of the top virtual speakers. So we were able to really make that shift quickly. We also pivoted immediately to a position of service. So we immediately said, how can we serve the clients that normally would be booking us now? So we did something that was painful, which was we returned, before they asked, many of the deposits that we'd receive for events into the future. Because we said if we were that business and we had all this outstanding money that we didn't know where would it be necessary, we don't want to lose it, we would love to see that money come back to us. So we did a lot of things like that in the beginning to stake our position as people who prioritize serving the customers that we had. So it was tough, though, Dave, to take some of those stances. I kept everyone employed. I took the major cost cuts in the beginning to my own salary for as long as we could withstand. And so, it was important for me to feel like I was serving a team who had served me well for as long as possible. And lastly, I'll say I'm also a wife and mother. So only last Wednesday did our two kids go back to school for the first time.
Oh, last Wednesday.
Since the beginning of lockdown. So me and Daddy were here, celebrating pretty hard, dancing pretty hard because, they were out there. But again, now we see, the Delta variant and all these things. And our kids are a few of the only kids wearing masks at their school. So I wouldn't say we're out of the woods altogether. If we need to bring them home again, we'll do that. But we're taking things one day at a time, like most people in the world. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's good news to see that things are now. Well, not what's it, they keep saying that the new normal, but it's kind of. And also, you probably worked out another, like when you pivoted, another kind of dimension of what you need to work on.
We did, like you said, we added on a different part of the business. We've created some new services that allow us to work deeper with some of the corporations. A keynote is fun. It's inspirational. It lasts an hour. Everybody feels awesome. And then you go back to real life and you're like, what'd she say again? And how do I apply that? So we're wanting to go in deeper into these organizations and work with their people to help them communicate some of the same tactics we might have given them on stage. How do they now break down that breakthrough to all levels of their organization? So it really was a powerful year in business and in family for us, even though I wouldn't wish the devastation that we experienced, on our worst enemy, the devastation the world experienced. I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Okay. Well, I saw something about maverick behavior or something that's can you tell me more about that and how that came about?
Yeah, that was it's one of my signature keynote presentations.
Okay.
We call them keynote concert adventures. So they combine the music, the inspiration, the entertainment.
Okay.
How to move like a maverick. You really, I can look back now at my keynotes and you can kind of tell what was trending in business society at the time. So when we created that, the words were innovation and disruption. Everybody wanted to know how you do that. And it just so happened that my career was like the picture of what it looked like to reinvent, to take risk, and end up creating a whole new audience for what I was doing. And so, classical music, the stereotype, it's very elite music, very monolithic audiences that are usually white and over 65 years of age. one of my nicknames given to me by an American journalist is classical music's #1 maverick. And so that's where that came from. Now we're teaching people how to exhibit maverick behavior, how to take detours on purpose in order to shake up yourself as well as the industry you're in.
I see. Yeah, right. I was wondering where that came from, really, but
yeah.
Yeah. So tell us more about your company, Jade Media Global, which you're the CEO of.
Yeah, so that's what we've been talking about. We create live experiences, and then we also are branching more now into content that corporations can take and use at will, use when they need it. So, we've been speaking enough. We've gotten enough accolades and read enough post-event reviews to understand what's resonating with these audiences. And so we've taken a lot of what they said is working for them, and we're now creating content that corporations can take and really bake that into their everyday existence. Inspiration now more than ever is going to have to be a real part of the workplace. You look at past generations. I think about my parents. They're in their 70s now, but when they were in the heyday of working, you worked because it's what you did, and you worked for that company and you were loyal to that company. And if it had good benefits, it was a good job, right? And then, generations today are expecting more from the workplace. They're wanting to feel energized. They're wanting to find meaning and purpose in everything in the workplace. And so we're trying to help companies be able to provide that sense of meaning and purpose so that their employees don't just feel like people in charge of the bottom line, but that the company cares about them beyond that bottom line.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So things are now getting back to normal for you. As you mentioned, just son has gone
and
back to school and daughter. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What is there any? I mean, what's it like now in terms of? Because the UK, I think it was 17th of this month, July. Sorry. They totally said, right, no more lockdowns, nothing. Everything's back to normal. And in fact, I think even now, entertainment industry, the theatres and everything is all, they're allowing crowds. But what they're going to start doing in that and sports crowds is have a vaccine passport. That's what they might start doing from September. But now it's there's no lockdown, everything's back to normal. But still, it's kind of still respect the social distancing and wear masks where it is crowded, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. Is it like that where you are now, or?
Well, I'm in Texas, so that's the whole. You got the United States, and you have Texas. I mean,
that's right.
Kind of its own thing.
It's like California, isn't it?
It really is its own world. Even at the height of the pandemic, try to make sure I don't exaggerate, but I'd say when most people were still fairly fearful, you could still go out around here and wonder if there was a pandemic. And I say that even saying that, our kids are some of the only wearing masks. Now that could be because everybody's vaccinated. Maybe that's the case.
Yeah.
When I was running for office, one of the things that I said was the danger of politicizing this issue is that when you really need the nation to listen, they won't be sure of who they can listen to and what to trust. And you can make a valid argument for just about every argument that's out there. There is research or conspiracy theory or news to back it up. Just depends on the day of the week. And because of that, now we have this distortion. So yes, in some ways, like you said, it's this back to normal. And I kind of put that in quotes. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by pretending that things are normal. I think it would have been much better to just understand there's not even going to be a new normal. There's only going to be a new. How do we prepare for the new? And so, the one thing that I think holds true for all humans is we want to be free. It's an instinctive instinct, right, to be free. And once you free us again, to get us to go back into any kind of captivity is going to be a hard thing to do. And so I think that's what you're seeing now. People are going to press forward no matter what the numbers say. Like you said, you're opening up the sporting events. I know the big music festivals are here. They're requiring the vaccine passport. But we also see the reports now about all the fake passports that are coming out. So
well, this is all the other things that they're going to...
Yeah, all the other things. And that is kind of the weird beauty of man, right? We create one thing for one reason, and then we have this knack for creating it for all the other reasons we want it for. And I think that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah, it's certainly, just the whole world's sort of transforming to something
it's
new
upside
now.
Down a bit,
Yeah. I mean, talking about that, I mean, how does people move forward and prosper in these times of change, challenge, and transition? Now that we're pretty much seeing, countries are starting to come out of it. Well, some aren't because of this new variant, but you know what I mean. It's we are transitioning now, aren't we, and moving forward.
Yeah, and at the same time, Dave, you have stuff like what's going on in Afghanistan, at least for us.
That's right.
Here
That's a new one.
In the States, it's like, wow, it's like when it rains, it pours. You think you're coming out of one issue and you come into the next. And of course, because the anniversary of 9/11 is coming, for me, it makes me go, I've always felt like when those lives were lost, to me, to be someone who's still here, there's a special onus. Whenever there are these tragedies, I always think for those of us who are still here, there's a special onus on us to make something meaningful of our lives. And so when events happen like what's happening in Afghanistan, and I'm watching people just be in fear, it's hard to kind of feel like there's a lot to celebrate right now. So I think in order to stay sane, we have to focus on what we can control. And I think now that at least in the States, the high political season is over, it gives us an excuse now to stop hyper focusing on the other side, whoever that is, and to really lean into the people who are closest to us and say, how can I serve the individuals I'm closest to? That's the one I live with, the ones I work with, the ones I'm in community with. If each individual could now shift from that survival mode that politics puts us into and say, how can I be a part of someone else's survival and someone else's thriving? I think in the next few years, we'll see a different type of recovery. Whereas even if you still have the pandemic, even if the tragedies are still going on all around the world, is there some way that you have planted a good seed and yielded some sort of positive impact? I think that's the kind of impact that can multiply. And then maybe that's the stuff that causes, I don't know, you, Dave, to wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm going back to activism. I'm going back to this era because the world, it needs me in this space. And so my dream, maybe I'm bent this way as an inspirational speaker, is that people will find within themselves a unique ability to impact in larger ways than they ever have before. That's the kind of new normal we need to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's hope. I suppose hope that it all does go forward to sort of greater and prospering things.
Yeah.
For the world, the whole world, really, because we all suffered together. As they say, we're all in it together, weren't we? Really. So what's next for you then, Jade? What's your next move for?
I've learned to stop answering that question.
All right.
As soon as I say this is what I'm doing, I call it divine
because of what happened,
right? but I will say I can at least talk now in short term. I'm working on a couple of different books. One that will talk about one of my favorite topics, which is purpose. It's the definitive guide to purpose. I feel like I talk about it like no one else does, and we're watching people have incredible breakthroughs in their lives because of some of the content we released on purpose. And I'd also like to write a book about what I experienced during the political season last year, especially as a believer. I'm a person of faith, a Christian, and it was a hard time to be a Christian in the United States.
All right, okay, yeah. Well, I can imagine the scale, because of the scale of it.
Gosh. The scale of it, the definitions didn't line up. There were, at least where I believe my faith is, I didn't see a lot that represented my faith well.
There was a lot of you mean because of the looting and stuff like that, or the actual?
No, I mean the rhetoric.
Okay, yeah.
And I think a lot of what I call the hijacking of religion and of faith for political purposes.
Right. I see.
And so I'd love to do a bit of an exploration about how we can reclaim our faith from the grips of politics, from the grips of division, from the grips of manipulation, so that faith can be a force for good again, instead of something that people are afraid of. Running as an open Christian. I was openly Christian, right? As a political candidate in our nation is a risky thing to do. And the reason I did it was because I felt like we needed a counter narrative to what was being positioned as either evangelical or Christian. I didn't match up with what was being positioned politically. And I wanted people to know that there were people who identified as believers who also were opposed to racism, who also were opposed to brutality, who also were for human rights issues. I think that's important for us to paint pictures that are opposite of the ones that we feel are doing injustice to what we believe. So I see a book coming on that as well.
Yeah, well, that would be great, getting a book out as well. And for people to really keep up to date and find out what you are up to, and if the book does come out, where can people go and find you and find out more about you and maybe reach out to you?
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably most active on Instagram at official Jade Simmons. I do a lot of interaction there and a lot of reels and inspiration. We're also on LinkedIn, Jade Media, and Facebook, Jade Media as well. And of course, if people want to just learn more about my speaking, they can go to jadesimmons.com.
Great. Well, I'll put that on the show notes. So anyone listening, they can always refer back to the link on the show notes if they want to.
Thank you.
The website. Thank you. And I'd imagine all your social media will be on there as well. To click on. Yeah. It is. Excellent. Well, Jade, it's been a great pleasure speaking to you. As I said, I was just really impressed with, how what you're doing. And now I'm glad I had this conversation with you to find out more. Really am inspired myself, and as well as I'm sure my audience have been. So
thank you.
Yeah, and certainly I will probably look at getting back into activism and sharing a platform with you as well.
Yeah,
speaking about a few home truths.
My eyes open.
Yeah, definitely. But in the meantime, it's, as I said, thanks for coming on the show and sharing everything with my audience and your story.
Thank you for having me.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.